First, to an important number, 3,300. That's the average cost of one person's quarantine stay in a hotel. Times that by 20,000 or so, the number of people returned so far, and you're talking about some really big money.
Is it worth the price of safety, or is that cost too great as the numbers of those returning increases? Some are saying that user pays might be the way to go. Tim Wilson has more.
As planes continue to land, bringing Kiwis home from that giant petri dish otherwise known as the outside world, quarantine becomes more problematic, with questions about whether it's working properly.
Isolation hotels reach capacity.
Questions mount over quarantine practices.
2 new COVID cases puts a hotel into lockdown.
And mixed views about the cost of all those hotel stays. $81 million and counting.
Too much money, yep. I think there's other things to spend that money on.
I think that it's probably good to have someone pay for them to do that, but if they could go home to a place, then yeah, it wouldn't cost the taxpayer anything for that.
I mean, it's an awkward thing, isn't it? It's really awkward, but if you want to come back, I think you do have to kind of grapple with the costs of that. I mean, why would anyone else pay for it?
I was one of the group's people that came home from halfway across the world, and it was terrifying and stressful, and it was scary. And it's not a holiday. Going to the Mercure wasn't a holiday.
Look, I think it's a good thing if the actual situation was working, but there's been a few mistakes by the government, and as a taxpayer, that's quite frustrating.
Meanwhile, the minister is also doing some accounting.
You can do the math there. We've had 20,151 people to today, and we estimate we'll be spending 81 million.
Doing the math, it works out that quarantine costs the country on average around $3,300 per person. In Australia, Queensland is going user pays, charging quarantine users 2,800 Australian dollars per person from July, an idea that's catching on here.
Overseas entrants to New Zealand should be paying for their own quarantine, and New Zealanders returning should have the opportunity to top up whatever quarantine payment the government might wish to provide with their own funds.
Eric Crampton is chief economist with the New Zealand Initiative. He's not happy.
All of the quarantine facilities have been overseen by the Ministry of Health, and they've been doing ridiculous things in quarantine that would not pass muster with the average 12-year-old.
One thing's for certain, the quarantine budget isn't unlimited.
We do not have a blank cheque. This is something that we're doing some work around the policy that will be required, but there is a right of New Zealanders to return home.
ASB and 7 Sharp, keeping you one step ahead.
Yes, as she says, it is the right of New Zealanders to return home, and this is the downside of New Zealand crushing COVID. It's that every expat in every part of the globe wants to come home. It's very attractive. And the PM says that user pays options are up for discussion in Cabinet.
Also, a couple of high-profile cases from overseas. I mean, the crew of the Avatar movie and the America's Cup cruise that have been allowed back into New Zealand. Now, they have all paid for their own quarantine.
Yeah, that's good to point out.
The Kiwi taxpayer didn't pay for them. So I think that's an important thing to point out. Maybe there's another option. Maybe, how about this for an idea? How about the budget versus five-star option? So you get an option. If you want to come back and you want to pay for something yourself, you can pay something a little bit more expensive.
Right.
Or if you don't, if you can't afford to. And the thing is, everybody should be allowed back, right?
OK, I want to know what the budget option is.
Well, it could be, I don't know, maybe somewhere, well, Whangaparoa.
Oh, where they initially took people for quarantine. Waiouru. I mean, if the army is running things already, Waiouru, and then if you don't have the space at Waiouru, maybe get some Maui camper vans. Park them all at $39 a day. Yeah. Just put everybody in a Maui camper van in Waiouru.
Yeah, why not?
Don't know. It's
maybe
an idea.
Different options might be the way to go.
Ideas, Jeremy. Ideas.
Yeah.